Behold, I have returned from the far-off distant land, the United Kingdom. I was at TF Nation 2025, which was a great time. I met all kinds of wonderful people and saw all kinds of interesting toys, which means I have brought back exclusive robots from the Eurozone. Yes, the forbidden Eurozone. A land full of death, destruction, and neon Transformers, Autobot and Decepticon alike. But it wasn't always a hellscape of bright colors. See, back in 1990, Hasbro was trying to break into the Australian market, the New Zealand market, and the Chinese markets, and to do so, they reissued a bunch of their classic toys. Seeing as they already had the machines going, Hasbro figured they might as well reissue some of their classic 1984 and 1985 figures for the European market as well. These reissues would be colloquially referred to by collectors as the Gold Box reissues, and there are a lot of interesting little variants and details revolving around these reissues. The Gold Box series was extremely successful, and this incentivized Hasbro to continue the Transformers toy line in European markets, and this is despite the fact that they canceled the Transformers in the United States in 1990. Because of this, Europe saw nearly 2 full years of exclusive figures before relaunching in 1992 with Generation 2. This included several exclusive recolors of Japanese figures, such as the Brain Masters becoming the Motivators, as well as today's subject. This is 1992's Turbo Master Flash, part of the European new wave of Autobots. This figure was never released in the United States, and we'll talk about why later, but it was imported into Takara's Operation Combination toy line, which unfortunately was actually the final part of the Generation 1 toy line in Japanese markets. It wouldn't be until 1994 that they would import some of the Generation 2 toys. Flash turns into a bright red Giuseppe Moroder, an Italian sports car designed by Marcello Gandini, and if that name sounds familiar to you, that's because he's been mentioned on the channel previously. He also designed the Lancia Stratos as well as the Lamborghini Countach, 2 iconic sports cars that would later become iconic Transformers. And because I'm a music nerd, it'd be irresponsible if I didn't point out that yes, this car was designed in part by Giorgio Moroder, which is part of the name. I have no idea what he did to design a car, considering he is a music producer. Maybe he played synth while they were drafting the design. I don't know, it's just a weird fact. Now, the red plastic used on Flash is extremely bright and luminescent. It catches light really well and is just a burning color on camera. Michael Bay would have an absolute conniption trying to film this.
I asked Michael why it was easier to train oil drillers to become astronauts than it was to train astronauts to become oil drillers, and he told me to shut the fuck up.
That intensifies with the clear plastic used. It's not gray, it's not blue, it's a fiery pink. Now there is a tiny bit of color breakup in vehicle mode with these yellow stripes as well as the blue paint accents, but your eye's not going to focus on any of that. If you're not already blinded by the red plastic, you're going to focus on this extremely goofy knockoff Pontiac Firebird decal.
Oh, howdy neighbor. May I spray you with the horse in a playful fashion?
Spray the boy.
This is so poorly rendered that it wheels all the way back around and becomes really adorable. It's no vast predatory bird, but it's honestly really cute. And speaking of cute, if you look past that pretty in pink windshield, you're just gonna notice his head's just right there, just right in the driver's seat. He's staring out into the middle distance, not a care in the world.
And stop staring at me with them big old eyes!
He's not fooling anybody in vehicle mode, so we might as well just go straight to robot mode. Flash carries over a lot of the classic 1984 and 1985 Autobot design elements. The rear of the car becomes the legs, arms form from the sides, and a big busty car hood chest. And when you get to the head sculpt, he looks very reminiscent of the Dotson brothers, Prowl, Blue Streak, and specifically Smokescreen. And larger head crests feel very reminiscent of the Sunbow character model for Smokescreen. I don't think it's an intentional reference, but he does feel like an evolution of the Dotson character model in general, just with a lot of European flair. Instead of the car wings, he has massive shoulder pads formed from the roof of the car. He also has an intense color scheme. Now in robot mode, that monotonous red is broken up by a new secondary color, this gorgeous shade of sandy blue. It does a lot of heavy lifting here, because if it was a little more saturated, it'd become visually overbearing. But the desaturated sandy blue here really complements the bright red on display, as well as the little sticker highlights here and there. This specific shade of fiery pink used on the Autobot Turbo Masters is just like the phosphorus green used on the Decepticon Predators. It catches light so incredibly well. In bright lighting, it looks beautiful, but even in low light settings, it still complements the portrait sculpt. It's just a great shade used, and I wish we would see it more. Now, we gotta remember, this figure is from an ancient, antiquated time of toy engineering, where they would have this thing called gimmicks. Hasbro would never do it anymore, because accuracy to the source material is paramount, but back in the day, they were just having fun making things up, and the Turbo Masters gimmick is their turbo power, because they're turbo lovers. Okay, not really. The large engine block can be removed and turned into a handheld spring-loaded cannon, and this is why it was never released in the United States. Thunderclash, Rotorstorm, Hurricane, Scorch Flash, Boss, all of these guys have incredibly small missiles, incredibly small by US safety standards, and the fact that the missile launchers are spring-loaded means that if somebody in the US were to eat a bullet, they probably wouldn't live to tell the tale, and Hasbro would have gotten their asses sued.
Why should you go to jail for a crime someone else noticed? You don't need double talk. You need blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. No habla español.
Ironically, the Predator's green chunky missiles did match US safety standards, but the missile launchers themselves did not. That's why Machine Wars Starscream and Machine Wars Soundwave still have their missiles intact. Now, this is the part of the video I typically talk about the character's personality and lore, but unfortunately, Flash really doesn't have much outside of his original file card. The original bio describes Flash as a bit of an impetuous maverick, you know, the hot dog, hotshot rookie, looking to prove himself and causes nothing but trouble, but he does use his acrobatic antics as well as his super speed to distract the Decepticons during missions. And outside of some background appearances and crowd filler roles in comics, that's about it for Flash. In fact, that's about it for the majority of the Turbo Masters. Rotorstorm and Thunderclash are the only ones who've managed to escape obscurity, and Rotorstorm had to die to do that. Oh, good old Rotorstorm. He always had a quick joke and could light up your smoke, but after Overlord was done with him, you had to get a spatula and a garden hose to clean up what was left. Anyway, I like the Turbo Masters. They might be obscure and have no character, but all the character you need really comes out in the sculpt work and their robot modes and their vehicle modes. They have a charisma to them, even if they literally have no character. The Turbo Masters also feel like they're very softly trying to get Transformers transitioned into the 1990s. It can't be understated how much toy aesthetics change from the 1980s to the bold, bodacious, gauche 90s. And I think if these figures were introduced into the United States, Transformers would have more smoothly transitioned into that period, instead of the horrific mad dash scramble that landed on its face called Generation 2. I love Generation 2, and we've talked about it many times on this channel, and many more in the future. Either way, the Autobot Turbo Masters have an undeniable charisma about them. Obviously there's the mystique there of being European exclusive, but there's still just something there, just a bold direction that's very visually impactful and interesting, and the same goes for their Decepticon counterparts, the Predators. So, all told, the European exclusive waves of figures just make for a very bold example of some of the best that Transformers had to offer.